there. This is safety rule number 10, which is just decide to really learn to understand the guitar fretboard. And I don't know if you're like me, for many years, this, the shapes, the where the notes are, I hadn't gotten past the 5th fret, and I really ought to have. But if I understood the shapes and the patterns, then, well, once you understand the shapes and the patterns, the guitar actually teaches you quite a bit about theory. But the main reason this has to do with safety and hands is that if you understand how the chords work, and if you understand how the patterns and the relationships in the fretboard, then you can modify to make chords easier for yourself. There might be a way of playing the chord that works for you, but it doesn't work for somebody else. And you can modify for yourself if you know how things work. Let me show you an example. One thing I've said in other lessons, you may or may not have seen it, we talk about something called the root. This isn't a theory lesson, but the root is basically the note in the chord that has the same name as the chord. So this is a D chord you might be familiar with. This spot right here is the root. And I was surprised how many people have trouble with the D chord, but they do. And we can simplify the D chord just by, if this is the thing with understanding how the fretboard works. If you know where the root of your chord is, you can not play it. So let's do that with D, and instead of making this shape, just take this finger away, kind of naturally. You know how your fingers are always muting strings when you don't want them to? Well, now we want it to. We want this string to mute the 2nd string. This finger is on the 3rd string, and it's touching the 2nd string. So the 2nd string is muted. And if I strum from the 4th fret down, I get a very nice sounding chord. I'll show you that. See? Another way we can leave out, let's see, was there another one where we could leave out the root? Well, in the A chord, you could do that by just not playing the 3rd string. That's where the root is in an A chord. 1, 2, 3. This note in the middle is the A note, and you could just do that shape again. You could let this finger mute the 3rd string, and you get a nice sounding A chord. I actually have a long nail that's giving me trouble. There. Another cool thing is when you can play the same chord higher up and use some open strings. Like, it took me forever to discover this A chord. If we just play right here, this is an A. And one thing when you learn about how the fretboard works, if I play a note here and then I just put my finger on the next fret, next string 1 fret lower, next string 1 fret lower, that shape right there, that's a chord. Do, mi, sol, mi, do. And since this root is, this spot is the root and it's an A note, this is an A chord. Since the 5th string is an A note, I could also play the 5th string. And since the open 1st string is an E, that's a note in the A chord. I get a really nice sounding A chord from making that shape. And that shape might work better for some people than this one down here. That A chord also, you can play the open E for a bass note. There are lots of things you can do when you understand the fretboard. Oh, I'll show you one more that took forever to learn. Oh, I had a Beatles book, the first music book I ever had when I was in junior high. And it would put songs in the key of B flat, E flat, and it would tell me that I had, for E flat, I can barely play it now. The shape of a D chord, only it's 1 fret higher, which is E flat, and then put a finger here. I'm not saying do this. I'm saying this is what my book was telling me to do, and I could not do it, and I didn't know anything, so I felt like, well, I can't play that song. It has an E flat chord in it. Well, here's a shape that gives you a chord. It's the C shape. This is the root. It's a C note. If I make this shape anywhere on the fretboard, if I'm just playing the strings that I'm fretting, I'm getting whatever this note is. That's the chord. This is a C. This is a D. And if I go up 1/2 fret higher, now I have an E flat chord. It's a little tricky because you have to let this finger mute to the 3rd string and let this finger mute the 1st string. I hope I said all that right. But that is an E flat chord. I have a whole video about E flat, and that one's got a lot of views. Much easier than, I mean, I can make this, but I don't think that I could make it in a song and get there very fast. And think about if I was playing that E flat chord that I just showed you, I would have hurt myself. But actually, the trick is in that case would be transpose it to another key. But if you absolutely need an E flat chord, there was one that I just showed you. Okay, so we talked about examples of what you can do to make a chord easier. Oh, I wanted to show you, it took me forever to find this one too, but it's hard to find a good substitute for just a nice full B minor chord. But in a particular, it's one of the songs we work on in the Become a Natural program. And it just so happens that the way that song works, it depends on the song, but the way that song works, all I need to get my B minor is the B note here, and the F sharp is there, and the D. That's a D, F sharp, and a B note. And B, D, F sharp. And that's a very nice, it's just 3 notes, D and F sharp and B. And this is not particularly easy, but it's easier than the bar chord B flat. The other thing, this is kind of a side trip from safety rules. The other thing about understanding the fretboard is that you can remember how the song goes. If all those dots and spots and shapes don't really mean anything to you, you forget, was it the 7th fret? Was it the 5th fret? But if you know, okay, that shape was based on an E chord, I just wasn't playing the root or something like that, then you can remember where your fingers go. 2 ways to learn to understand the fretboard. One way is to do the guitar mastery exercises that are also being posted regularly at this time. And GME or guitar mastery exercises, you will understand the fretboard. And also my Become a Natural guitar course. The first one was free. They're public. The guitar mastery exercises are public YouTube videos, and there's a playlist for it. I'll put it in the description. Let me write that down. Links. And then the other way to really get an even bigger picture is the Become a Natural course, which is a year-long course. And you can learn more about that on my website, which will also be in the link. There's a page for Become a Natural, which will tell you all about it. And if you're on my mailing list, then you will hear about it whenever I have registration for Become a Natural. Okay, so number 10, decide to really learn to understand the guitar fretboard. Once you catch on, it's really fun. And I will see you next time. Bye.